All right, we're going to jump right into Photopea here. We have an image. The goal of this project, the first image will be to desaturate the background and leave the basketball in color. This is a very common technique that's used to enhance an image, make something pop while leaving the rest of it nice and black and white, classy look. So let's go ahead and get started with the selection. Since this is a round object, I'm going to use the ellipse select tool. So if you see, the default is usually the rectangle select. You just click and hold for a second, choose ellipse select. This gives us a circle or an oval shape as we create a selection. And with the tool, as you're creating the circle, it's going to drift away from the starting point. So to reposition it, you can hold the space bar while you're creating it and move the circle around to reposition it. And then continue drawing it once the edge is lined up correctly. One other keyboard shortcut is the Shift key. The Shift key constrains the circle to a perfect circle instead of an oval shape. So if your object is perfectly circular, you can hold the Shift key down while you're creating it. And then also, don't forget to use that space bar if you need to reposition as you're drawing it. For some reason my space bar doesn't work with my Shift key. There it goes. Alright, I'm going to say that's close enough for you to get the idea. Once you have it positioned where you want it, you can go ahead and release the click first, and then release the Shift and the space if you had those pressed down. So now I have a selection around the basketball. And to apply the effect, I'm going to go ahead and do the effect so you can see the effect in action here. So we'll be focusing on the adjustment layer, which is found here at the bottom of the layers panel. The half circle that is half dark, half light. Go ahead and click that. And then you'll see the list of adjustment layers here, and you'll want to use hue saturation. Once I click on that, you can see there's a layer that's added, which is the effect layer, and then you can see there's a mask. So any effect, any adjustment layer is applied based on a mask. So everything that is white would be visible in the effect. Everything that is dark, black, would be hidden from the effect. So you can use the mask to show or hide the effect. So let's go ahead and desaturate, which is our goal, is to desaturate the image. And you can see what's happening is the opposite of what I want to have take place. So there are two ways to remedy this. One would be ahead of time to plan. Let's go back one step. Actually, two steps before the adjustment layer. I still have my selection. So what I want to do now is I wanted the opposite to happen. So I want the background to be selected, everything except for the basketball to be selected. So I need to invert my selection. So I'm going to go ahead and click on select and select inverse. Now it may look like nothing happened, but in fact now you'll see there's a dotted line around the exterior of my image, which means all of this is selected, and then there's a hole in the middle that is not selected, which would be the basketball. Now when I apply this layer, I'm going to go ahead and apply the hue saturation layer again, and then desaturate. You can see now it's doing the correct thing. So that is option number one. I'm going to go back and show you the second option. So we're back to our original selection of the basketball. I'm going to go ahead and apply the hue saturation and then desaturate just like we did before. So let me explain this. Now everything that's in the mask that is dark, I want to be white, which would be applying the effect. And everything that it is white, which would be the basketball, I want to be black, so it will be hidden from the effect. So basically I want to invert the color scheme of this mask. Everything that's white would be black, everything that's black would be white. So there's a shortcut for that because it is a very common thing to do. I will mention it is Control I for invert. If you don't remember that, this is an image even though it's a mask. So to apply this effect, we're going to go to the Image tab, find Adjustments, and then you'll see Invert, which you'll see the shortcut listed there, Control I. That inverts the color scheme of the image. So I'm going to go ahead and click that, and right away you can see my mask has inverted and the effect is the correct way. Alright, so from here we're going to just zoom in and we can see the effect and see there's an issue with the fingers. So these should not be colorized, these should be desaturated. So I'm going to start with the left hand side and do freehand paint technique, and then on the right hand side I will do a different, more professional technique to get rid of the color here. So with our mask, what we want to do is we want to hide the effect. Actually no, we want to apply the effect to the fingers. So we want to apply the desaturation to the fingers. So I will be painting on the mask with white to add more pixels to the effect. Hopefully that makes sense. So I'm going to make sure the mask is selected, switch to my brush tool, and then down here you'll see there's a foreground and background option. I'm going to click the upper right hand corner right there in that little tool to switch back to the default colors, which is a white foreground and a black background. If you want to switch those, you can click on the little arrow symbol and it flip-flops. It makes the background the foreground and the foreground the background color. So I'm going to go ahead and switch them back because I want to paint with white. And then up above you'll see the settings for the brush tool. The most important are the size and the hardness. The hardness is a nice hard edge transition between what you're painting and what's not painted. A softer edge would have a more blended edge to it. Since I want a clean look, I'm going to go ahead and leave it hard, maybe turn it down a little bit, and then I'll start painting. You may need to adjust the size to get in closer and do all the fine details. For the sake of time, I'm not going to do the best job, but I'm going to try to get most of it so you can see the effect take place. So what I'm doing is I'm just painting in the effect, painting with white on the mask. Okay, so you can see when you get close to the edge, you may want to switch to a smaller brush so you can get in all close to the edge there. This brush size is perfect for what I'm doing with it. So again, for the sake of time, I'm just going to quickly go over these areas so you get the effect and a pretty good finished project here. Okay, so you can see that is one freehand paint technique, painting on the mask. Again, if you want to reveal more of the desaturation, you would be painting with white. If you want to erase the effect, you'd be painting with black. So now I'm going to switch to a more professional approach, which would be to make a selection and then fill that selection with white. So the reason that this is used more professionally is you have a lot of control over the edge of your selection. I'm switching to the pen tool and making sure that this tool is set to path because I don't want to create a shape with this tool. I want to eventually create a selection. So I'm going to start off creating a path. So let me zoom in here so you can really see this. I'm going to select a starting point that is outside of the effect. That way I don't really have to worry about where I'm starting from. So I'm going to click to place a point and then click and hold to drag out some handles here and then just follow along. Anytime there's a curved line, I'll need to drag out some handles, but there's a lot of straight edges as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and click some of these straight edges. There's a transition here, so I'm going to go ahead and make just some straight lines. And again, if I had more time, I'd be doing this more exact. But the benefit of this is you have complete control over where the path is going to be, and you get a nice clean edge around it. In the shadows here, I have some room to make some errors because in black and white or in color, it just looks like dark pixels there. So I'm just going to quickly go through here. This is a fairly straight line, so I'm just going to click and go around here. There's another curve, so I'm clicking and holding to drag out those handles so I get a curved line. Again, I'm in the shadows here, so I'm going to quickly just click some lines here. Okay, getting close to the end. Okay. Now, the key with this is you have to close the shape. So I need a path that's closed. I'm going to go ahead and just click anywhere outside here where the effect is already being applied and just connect the dots back to the beginning. So I have a closed shape here. Now I need to go to the Path tab. So I'm switching from layers to paths. And I have a work path here that I want to convert to a selection. Down at the bottom, there's a new menu. So there's a different menu down here than there is on the Layers tab. You can see that changes when I switch tabs. So down here, there's an option to convert from a path to a selection. It's like the dotted line there. So go ahead and click that. Convert your path to a selection. Now I'm going to switch back to the Layers panel, make sure that the mask is still selected. Then the last step, I want to fill this area with white, the color white on the mask. So it's just like I was painting with white, painting the mask with white, but in a much more controlled way. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Edit, find where it says Fill. From the drop-down menu, white is one of the options to choose, and then simply click OK. And now you can see that selection has been filled in with white. There's a nice clean edge around there. Again, if I made any mistakes in this, I could go back with a small brush and paint it in with white. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom out, and you can see the finished product here. I'm going to go ahead and deselect my selection. So I'm going to go to the Select tab, choose Deselect, so I can see it nice and cleanly there. That's example number 1 using the adjustment layer hue saturation. There are 2 more images. Let's go dive right into the next one. I'm going to go ahead and close this one without saving. All right, the next one we're going to focus on the flowers. If I can find that, here we go, flowers. All right. So in this example, we're actually going to change the hue of the flowers. Let's say we own a flower shop, and this was last year's example of the seeds we have, and this year we just have different colors. So we got to change the color somehow. Instead of taking this picture again, we're going to just change the hue. So it would take forever to select each of these petals on these flowers all in the background. So the selection method that we're going to use is not the same as we used previously where we're using a selection tool. That would just take too long. So I'm going to go ahead and immediately just apply the effect. Whoops, I didn't mean to click that. Click on the adjustment layer option there and then find hue saturation. And I'm going to switch to the move tool just so I'm off of the other tools. Alright, so when I adjust the hue, I can change the color of the flowers. That's what hue does. It actually takes the color and adjusts the actual hue of the color. And there's different colors of the rainbow that mixes to form different colors as you adjust it. So that's the general effect we're going for. But you can see it's being applied to all of the colors. The green of the stems, everything's changing with the hue. So if I wanted to affect just the flowers, I'm going to go ahead and adjust it back down to 0. I want to just affect the yellow tones. So the only thing in the image that's yellow is the flower that I want to change the hue. So instead of master, there's a built-in way to narrow down the color range that is being affected. Right now it's being applied to all colors. Let's switch to yellow and then make an adjustment and see what happens now. You can see there's less adjustment happening, especially to the sky and to this purple set of flowers here. But the stems are still changing color, and the leaves. So we're going to focus our attention down here. This is the actual color range that's being affected. So they're considering yellow to be, in the orange family as well as the beginning stages of the green family. So that's why the stems are being affected as well. These little things, the bounding edges, these little icons here, are adjustable. So the outermost ones are the cutoff for the color range. So I can definitely adjust these in. And to see what we're working with, I'm just going to go ahead and increase the saturation just to maximum. And then maybe even add some lightness so it's really obvious what colors I'm adjusting. So as I narrow this down, you'll see that less greens are being affected. Let me go ahead and shift my image. You can see really what's going on. And then if I adjust the oranges out, you can see the middles of the flowers are not being as affected. So here's more oranges, here's less oranges. So that's really taking away the effect from the middle of the flower. So the inner limit little icons there, that is where the color range is completely affected. So this narrow range in the middle is where it's 100% affected, and then it kind of fans out from there to the outer limits. So it's kind of a gradual effect. So it's a rainbow of colors that are selected, but it's kind of in a gradient. The middle section here is 100% affected, and then it blends out to the outer limits of this setting here. So I'm kind of just adjusting it to decrease the effect on the greens and really narrow it down and eliminate that, and also eliminate it from the orange center of the flower. So let me go ahead and try to grab that. So I've really focused in on the yellows. Let me add a little bit more back. The background has some oranges in it. Okay. Now that that's adjusted, I'm going to go ahead and just return this to a more normal setting, the saturation and the lightness as well. And there's a couple of things we could do with this. Since we have yellows being affected, I can change the hue now. I can go ahead and change the color. And now that I have the effect applied, I might want to go ahead and change the settings again to include a little bit more yellows. There we go. Or I could go ahead and desaturate to make like a white and increase the lightness a little bit. Go for like a white petal look. There's lots of things that I could adjust to be creative in this, but you get the idea. There's a built-in ability to focus on different color groups if you want to limit it to a specific color group. So that is image number 2. So we're taking it and we're affecting a color range to quickly adjust the hue Let's move on to the third image. Go ahead and close this one. For this one, we're going to use the colorization option. So here we have a black and white image. And one of the third ways that you could use hue saturation is to add color where there isn't any. So I'm going to go ahead and right away just click on, actually no, let's go ahead and do one thing first. So you'll see that the petals on this are a light color and the background is dark. What I want to do is just apply a color to the light area of the petals. So I'm going to first make a selection. Now to select the very delicate edges here would take some time. So I'm going to use a shortcut to get us started, and then we can kind of adjust it as we go. So to begin with, I'm going to go ahead and find an option here, which is found in the Select tab. I'm going to select a color range. The way this tool works is to select a color range, you simply click on the image. So I want the whiter edge to be selected. And I'm trying to find a color range that selects the majority of the petal. So I'm just clicking around on the image to find the best results. And you'll know what's selected by the preview here, which anything that is white is 100% selected, anything that's a shade of gray will be partially selected, and anything that is black eventually will not be selected. So if you want to increase the tones from that color, you would just increase the fuzziness. And that kind of grabs colors that are similar in proximity to that. And if you want to take it one step farther, with the plus symbol, you can add by clicking more areas on the image. So if I click here, it's going to add more of the interior. And then if I click too much, I can eventually select the entire thing, which defeats the purpose. So if you ever make that mistake, you can simply go back to replace and start over again. So I'm going to click on just a random area here to get started with. And then I'm going to actually decrease the fuzziness, because now I'm going to add the missing shades by using the plus option here. So I'm going to click on here and add some more shades. So I'm in much more control. I'm finding areas that aren't selected yet and trying to select them without selecting too much of the background. So I don't want to go too dark. I know that if I click in here, it's going to start selecting the background. So I'm going to go ahead and there's a little missing area here, which is actually lighter. There we go. Okay, that looks like we're getting somewhere here. There's a little area right here. So we can add that. Oop, that may have taken too much. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and select this. It's a good place to start. I'm going to click OK. And I have a selection. So you can see that there's stuff that's been selected over here and around the entire image. But that's okay. We can go back and fix that. What I'm interested in is having a nice selection around the edge here. So I'm going to go ahead and apply the effect. I'll go ahead and click on the adjustment layer and then choose hue saturation. And then we're going to click on the Colorize option. This actually adds color where there isn't any. And to adjust the hue, you would grab the hue option at the top and you can actually change which color is being applied. So immediately I can see the effect taking place. And I'm going to go ahead and increase the saturation so I can see where it's being applied, and maybe even increase the lightness here. Just really make it exaggerated. And then I'm going to actually close the properties for a second so I can see maybe some areas that need to be painted out of the effect. So again, I want to make sure that the mask is selected. I'm going to switch to the brush tool, and then I'm going to switch to the black as the foreground and just simply paint out with a larger brush. I'm using the brackets on the keyboard. The left bracket increases or decreases the brush size. The right bracket increases the brush size as I'm using it. And then I can just simply paint out those areas. Now I'm painting with black on the mask. I'm just choosing to paint out any of these background areas that I didn't intend to have shown in the effect here. Okay, I'm just going to quickly paint this out. You get the idea. And then over here I have a little bit. Okay. When you're working with masks, if you want to see the actual mask as an image, you can use the Alt key and click on the mask. And now I'm viewing the black and white version of the mask. I'm going to go ahead and paint out the little border here now that I can see it. So I don't want any of this colorized. And then I'm going to go ahead and Alt click the mask again so I can see it. And then this object in the middle here shouldn't be colorized, but it is. But before I do that, I want to actually add some of this middle part. So to do that, I'm going to switch to white. So I'm going to switch the color scheme. Now I'm going to be painting with white. I'm going to add in anything that's missing from the petals here. And again, I have the effect turned up really high. Saturation is way up, and I actually included some lightness in the effect. I'm going to go ahead and paint in all the center part here. And then we're going to select the, I think it's called the stamen or something like that, to remove it. So I'm going to go ahead and paint now with black and grab a smaller brush. I can paint this out. Just so I have a nice contrast here in the middle. For the sake of time, I really just am looking to show you that you have the ability to be creative, choose what you want to apply the effect to using the mask, and using the technique of painting with black and white on the mask to reveal or hide it. So you get the idea. I'm just going to go ahead and paint a little bit of this out. Okay. That's probably not supposed to be colorized, but I'm going to leave it like that for now. Now that I have the effect that I want, I'm going to go ahead and open the effects and zoom out and then just make some fine adjustments. I'm going to turn the lightness back down and then saturation down to a more normal range, and then choose a color. Any color that looks good will do. So the goal is simply to explore ways to use this adjustment layer in a creative way. So we've reviewed how to desaturate an image by selecting the background and leaving something saturated by using the select tools. That's what the basketball image was. And then we learned how to apply the adjustment to a color range by adjusting this. And then we've now learned how to apply color or colorize using the Colorize feature and then adjusting the hue. Those are the three ways that are most popular in this adjustment layer, one of my favorite adjustment layers. So hopefully you've learned something new today and you can apply that to your projects.